Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're jumping into a really powerful and honestly pretty critical poem by the one and only Robert Frost. It's called A Roadside Stand. So, picture this. A car's just speeding by. A little stand is waiting on the side of the road. I mean, it's a scene we've all seen 1,000 times, right? A lonely little stand, city traffic just whizzing by. But for Frost, this wasn't just a simple picture. He saw a whole human drama playing out. A story about hope, about indifference, and yeah, a lot of pain. So let's get into it. All right, here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at the stand and its desperate hope. Then, we'll talk about the cold traffic passing by. After that, the danger of these, well, false saviors. And finally, we'll see how the poet shares in the pain. Let's get started. Okay, first up, a stand of desperate hope. We're really going to get to the heart of why this stand even exists. What are the people who build it actually feeling? And this is really the central question of the whole poem, you know? What was the expectation of the people who set up this stand? What are they really hoping for? It's probably not what you'd guess at first. Okay, so what's so fascinating is the line Frost draws. It's super clear. They don't want charity, right? They're not looking for handouts or what the poem calls the dole. They're not after your pity, no. What they do want is a chance to feel that city money, to be part of the cash flow. They just want a small taste of the better life that is literally speeding past them every single day. And you get the sense that these are really dignified people. Frost paints them as hardworking, patient, just waiting there all day long, holding on to this fragile hope. But, and this is a big but, he says there's something else there too, a deep, quiet sadness he calls an untold sorrow. So what is that sorrow? Well, it's that childish longing that just never, ever gets fulfilled. Think about it. It's that feeling of putting your whole heart into something, waiting almost like a kid, full of hope, and then just being ignored. Over and over and over again. That's the ache that sits right at the center of this poem. All right, let's shift gears. Now we're looking at the other side of the story, the cold pass of traffic. This is where we see that huge contrast between the world of the stand and the world inside those cars. The poem says, "The polished traffic passed with a mind ahead." I mean, that line is just packed with meaning, isn't it? It's not just traffic, it's polished, which makes you think of wealth, right? Shiny, perfect, kind of detached. And that phrase, "a mind ahead," it tells you everything. They're so focused on where they're going, they're completely blind to what's happening on the side of the road. So this polished traffic, it really represents the rich, urban city folks who are just, well, indifferent. They're so locked into their own destinations, they don't even see the stand. And that is the central conflict of the whole poem right there. You've got this rustic, waiting, hopeful world and this polished, speeding, indifferent world. And they exist right next to each other, but they might as well be on different planets. But Frost doesn't just leave it at indifferent, he takes it a step further. He says it's not just about them not noticing, it's worse. He calls them the 1,000 selfish cars that pass. Selfish. Wow. And this, of course, is a literary trick called personification. He's giving a human quality, selfishness, to an object, the cars. But what he's really doing is judging the drivers inside. He's basically calling an entire group of people self-absorbed and uncaring, all without having to describe a single person. It's pretty brilliant, actually. Okay, so now we get to what is, for me, the sharpest and most surprising part of the whole poem. The critique here isn't just about the rich people in cars. No, it's about the people who show up pretending they want to help. While greedy good doers, beneficent beasts of prey, swarm over their lives. I mean, just listen to those phrases. Greedy good doers, beneficent beasts of prey. They're total contradictions. He's talking about the politicians, the city planners, all these people who sweep in promising to save the day, but who are really just serving themselves. What he's using here is a tool called irony. It's when you say the opposite of what you mean to make a point. So when he calls them good doers, he's actually pointing out how harmful they are. And calling them beneficent, which means kind right before calling them beasts of prey, that's just a brutal way of exposing their hypocrisy. And that word he uses, swarm, he could have said they gathered or helped, but he chose swarm. What does that word make you think of? Right? A swarm isn't comforting. It suggests an overwhelming force, chaos, maybe even something a little disgusting. It's totally impersonal. It just washes over you, ignoring your individual needs. It is the absolute opposite of real coordinated help. And so, what's the result of all this help? Well, according to the poem, it's a disaster. These good doers, they soothe them out of their wits. They basically rob the country people of their own minds, their own ability to think for themselves. And in the process, they destroy their sleeping at night the ancient way. They shatter their peace, their self-reliance, their whole way of life. So in our final section, the poem kind of turns inward. We've seen the stand, the traffic, the false saviors. Now let's look at the poet's own shared pain. Where does he fit into this whole heartbreaking picture? Yeah, the thing is, the poet isn't just some neutral observer, taking notes from a distance. No, his complaint is this deep, personal ache for what's happening to these people. He feels it, the injustice, the sorrow. It weighs on him in a big way. He says he feels an unbearable sorrow for that childish longing in vain we talked about earlier. He just can't stand to see their hope get crushed again and again. Their pain literally becomes his pain. It gets so intense that he even has this dark thought about just putting them out of their misery. And that just shows you how deeply their suffering gets under his skin. So when you put it all together, what we've seen is that this poem is so much more than just a nice little snapshot of the countryside. It's a really powerful statement on economic disparity, on indifference, and maybe most importantly, on the harm that can be caused by misguided help. And really, Frost leaves us with a question that's just as relevant today as it was almost 100 years ago. When does help stop being helpful? At what point do good intentions turn into something damaging? It's something to think about, for sure.